Hey, it's Mr. Malte. In this session, we're going to look at using the curve tool and a color picker to make some Remembrance Day art. So let's just get started and get into it. It's going to look a lot at the layers that exist in slides and any other real tool that uses vectors. So without further ado, I've got some shapes here, some absolutely essential keyboard shortcuts that you're going to need to know. One is zooming, proper zooming. So if you use the control, and I like shortcuts, of course, but control and plus minus to zoom, that's your browser. And as you can see, that really messes things up. I mean, sometimes when you're looking at the color picker, that's in Google, the drop down gets hidden, so I have to go to 90%. So that does happen. So I use that control minus, but often people are zooming that way, and it's really not the correct way to zoom when you're on something like a slide. The way you want to zoom is Control Alt, which on a Chromebook is awesome because it's a snake bite, the two keys right next to the spacebar. Control Alt, and plus will zoom you in, and minus will zoom you way out, so you can see your art from far out. And when you zoom in, you can use two fingers just to scroll around the art. So that's really a nice way. Control Alt, plus and minus, and then using those two fingers to zoom. Then that Control Alt and the square bracket right next to the letter P, that's just fit, normal view. So that's the Control Alt and the one little square bracket right next to the letter P. So practice that. The minus, Control Alt, plus. Looking at how fuzzy those things are. A little too close. Control Alt, minus, minus, minus. Want to go back to my normal view? Control Alt, square bracket. Boom. Practice that. Get used to it. Pause the video. Get into that. Now we're going to use some cool tools. There are two tools to create kind of vector shapes, which are like shapes that can, stay what they are no matter how big you make the picture, right? You can save these as SVG files, and then, so for nerds out there, you can save these as files, SVGs, and then you can make them any size. So you can make something in Slides and Google Drawings like the size of a gymnasium floor if you wanted to, because it's an SVG, which could be rendered to any size. So that's kind of cool. The rest of you are like, what? Who cares? Anyway, I'm going to start using these two tools. The two tools are, they're under the line, the select line tool, curve and polyline. Now, polyline would be one where it's a little more jagged because it's straight edges, and curve, it's a curve tool. So hit the curve. You want to practice this one because it can be frustrating if you, at first, because it's a click and move, and click and move, and you don't have to keep your hand on and drag. Click and move. My hands are off. Click and move, and then you have to go back to where you started and click, and that's the shape, right? So I recommend just try getting some shapes, creating some shapes by click and move and click and move and click and move and click and move. And like everything, I always use I have two hands on my mouse trackpad at all times. If you have an actual mouse, that's good too. I find when you're zooming in and out, the trackpad is actually better a little bit, but just practice getting some of those curve tools, those shapes, because I don't want you to get frustrated when you're doing the actual art. So do a whole bunch. Get some shapes. We're going to be deleting these shapes anyway in a little bit. A cool thing is these shapes, you could do things like rotate them. That's an Alt and the arrow keys. You can Control Alt J and K, resize them. And you can also give them, thicker border, black border, right? And so I've got some other projects where it's more like graffiti, and you can do cool things like that. But for now, that's just the shapes. Control Alt J and K to make them bigger and smaller. These shapes are really, really powerful. You can see all the stuff that you can do with them. They come with a little border, and we'll talk about getting rid of those. So I'm just clicking backspace, getting rid of those after you've practiced just using that curve tool. Click, move, click, move. So get used to it before you get into your art. Don't get frustrated by that. Just make a gumdrop first. It's probably the best thing to start with. Just a simple, like, I can do it. I made a gumdrop. Boom. Okay, now we're going to do some tracing. And I'm going to start with, which one? I'll start with this one down here, I think. Doesn't really matter. And I do want to Control Alt plus, get in there. Get close to it. Whoop. By the way, if you're like, oh no, I started the wrong point, escape. Escape gets you out of that tool. So right away I clicked and it wasn't good. All right, I'm going to do the entire shape first. And hey, does it have to be perfect? No. But you can zoom right in. If you ever click twice and the line does this, you're done. You have to backspace it. And you have to go back to the start. That is the frustrating thing about it. So just it's kind of a Zen thing. You got to just get into doing this and not worry. Don't worry about it being bad. And just click, move, click, move, click, move. As long as you click, move, you will not have issues. Boom, boom. This party could actually probably speed up on the video. Click and move and 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 click and move. Nice. All right. Now, you might notice that I put a second one over here because once we start adding these layers, it gets a little bit difficult to copy on this picture. So I'm going to actually copy on the one on the side, and you can do that too once you have your first shape. I do want to get the color and get some reds that aren't in here. So I have downloaded a color picker, and I use this all the time. This one's called ColorZilla. There's also Color Pick Eyedropper. There's a few other ones, but what I'm going to do right now is just show you where that is. This one's ColorZilla Chrome extension. Boop. And I believe that's approved for black gold. I sure hope you can install it. So ColorZilla. And I like these little Chrome extensions because this one you can click it, and then you can go to a spot on your drawing. Actually, I don't want that color. I want a little bit of the lighter one. And I noticed that it's not actually selecting the right spot totally. It's a little bit finicky sometimes. Okay, now that I've selected that color, I can go to my shape. I don't want a border, transparent border. Then the paint can is the fill color, and I'm going to a custom color, and I'm going to Control V. I'm pasting, and that is the color I chose from my Color Pick Eyedropper. Boom. Nice. Now, here's the other thing I really want to show today. That was a lot of stuff, I know. So, color picker, I want to see if you can use it. If not, you can just use the reds that are, in your list of colors. That'll work out too. You can also go to like a red and just go to, custom and choose any red in here, like on the spectrum. So, don't worry about it if you can't. But the one thing you'll notice that these poppies they're not a solid color. They're kind of translucent. So if we go to our color and go to custom, I'm actually going to take that custom color and I'm going to change the transparency. I'm going to bring the transparency down a little bit. Can you see? It's a little bit see-through. Pretty awesome. Okay. And I'm going to go over, I'm actually going to work on this one over here, and I'm going to move with my arrow keys. I'm going to move this shape over. I'm going to click. Alrighty. Oh, I should have done that as separate shapes, now that I'm looking. I think this one's all kind of the same. I could have taken this as separate too. So this is where you get to make a choice, like how many different values do you want to make? Do this. Boom. Oh, and it took the last color because I had that other shape selected. But let's grab our color picker, and I'm going to get the dark one. Oh, that color picker's being weird, hey? Oh, wow, that's kind of wild. Actually, I'm not even going to use that color picker now that I've said that. I'll go in and just get a dark, boom, dark red. Move it over. Oh, yeah. And I'm going to do something here. So this is like Bob Ross, but I'm going to actually duplicate the shape. Control D, the first one I did, and I'm going to make a little sandwich. Ha! That's pretty awesome. But with the front one, I think I'm going to go custom. And I'm going to move it down a bit. So all I did there is I clicked on the shape, Control D, and now it's in front, and the other one's in behind. So now I've got those two shapes. So now I'm going to do the rest of these just in that same way, just tracing a shape, choosing a color, and just using the transparency. So now I've got this little sandwich here. If I look, I've got one in behind and one in front. And I change the transparency just to see how that makes it look like really kind of bold. So there's the without, now in front, and it looks kind of translucent, much like that other one. So that's kind of cool. For the stems, you're going to have to zoom way in. And you're going to have to, just trace these down. Down. I think I might just make these ones black. Boom, and this is going to be dark. I'm going to control down, move it down. Control down arrows. Control down arrows. Remember, control up and down arrows. That moves your shapes up and down in your grids, in your layers. Cool. So I'm just going to keep going and going and going with these, get all these done, and I'll meet you back. I'll just pause it and I'll come back and I'm going to have all of my shapes, and then we'll look at the background. Okay, so you're going to be working for a while. If you don't want to, do every single one, you could duplicate this and move it and resize it. So, like, let's say I wanted to. I'll hold on Control. I'm going to select all three of these and Control D. I've got this flower. I've just kind of reproduced it. So I could put these here and move it back. Maybe I'll just even resize, make it smaller. So you could do some duplication, have the poppies like the same ones, but it won't look as good because they'll be the same. So good luck. Have some fun. Basically just tracing with that curve tool. Take some time getting used to. Using a red and bringing the transparency down. Probably more important doing that than using the color picker. And I'll come back. I'm just going to pause this for a second, and then I'm going to have all of mine, and then I'm going to look at the background. Alrighty. So now I've got my poppies, got them all drawn. We're going to look at the background, and this, I took some inspiration, and I kind of like this. I kind of made it look like the background was actual grass, and I just did it with colors. So I'm just going to show you. Go into the background and color and gradient, and this gradient's going to be, so I'm going to the background, color, gradient, custom. Now this, it's going to be linear. This is the bottom, this is the top, and you can add a few different ones. You can actually, I'll just show you like with two how it would look if I went from sunrise, sunset. If I did something, see, I can't see the colors. Control minus, there, I can see them all. So I'm going to make this kind of like a red. Oh, other one, wrong one. This one will make like an orange, and this one can be a red. And just even those two colors, look how good that looks. So that's really awesome. If you just want to do two colors, that's going to look really nice. You can really experiment with this and make it, like how you want. If you want to make it like, I went in and I added a few more. I added one that was, I'll make this one my red, and this one, see if it looks okay if I make it like a green, like grass. Kind of move it up, right? So it's kind of like a field in behind. For inspiration, I like to go to some of those sites like Adobe Color has awesome, if I go to Explore, you can even search. Adobe Color is so cool. Sunset. And I can explore these where it'll give you, look at that. You can just copy these colors and just copy, go to your background, and you can just add these in where you custom. It's right there. Okay, so I hope you did that. It was kind of rushed and people are talking outside my office, so it's not as fast, but yeah, we'll get that. Good luck.